At her cousin's birthday, 7-year-old Piper was forced to stand outside for 6 hours, watching all the other grandkids celebrate without her. "This party is not for cheaters' kids," her grandmother told her. Hannah, Piper's mother, didn't shout. She took action. 3 hours later, their lives started to collapse. Hannah's daughter Piper had been vibrating about this party for a week. Piper had drawn Sadie 3 different birthday cards because the first 2 weren't special enough. She'd practiced what she'd say when she handed over the present. She'd even asked Hannah if she thought Grandma Marjorie would sit next to her this time. So as Hannah walked up the familiar path to Marjorie's house that afternoon, she already had her standard pickup line loaded. "Did you have fun? Did you eat too much cake? Did you—" And then she saw Piper. Piper was standing on the side of the porch, right by the railing, not talking to anyone, not moving, just there. In the same blue dress Hannah had dropped her off in, hair still in the half-up style they'd done together that morning. Party shoes, no coat. Hannah lifted her hand and waved. "Hey, Bug." Piper didn't wave back. That shouldn't have been a big deal, but it was the first tiny crack. It wasn't freezing outside. No visible breath in the air, nothing dramatic. Just that damp, early spring chill that's fine for car to door, but miserable if you stand still in it long enough. Piper's shoulders were hunched in a way Hannah recognized from soccer fields. The "I'm cold, but no one told me I'm allowed to say it" hunch. Hannah quickened her steps. "Piper?" She tried again. Piper turned her head a little, like it took effort. Her face came into view in pieces. Flushed cheeks, but not from running around. Patchy redness around her eyes. The shiny look you get when you're out of fresh tears, but not out of feelings. Her lips were dry and pressed together. Up close, Hannah saw Piper's hands. Piper was holding them against the skirt of her dress, fingers curled, knuckles pink from cold. Hannah's stomach did a slow, heavy roll. "What are you doing out here?" she asked. She kept her voice light, like they were playing a game and she hadn't realized it yet. "Did you come out for air?" Piper opened her mouth, closed it, then looked past her toward the front window. Hannah followed her gaze. Through the glass, she saw the end of a party. Crumpled paper plates, pizza boxes stacked on the counter. Sadie in a plastic tiara, laughing with her other cousins. Her mother, Tara, moving around with a trash bag. Hannah's mother-in-law, Marjorie, at the far end, leaning over to wipe frosting off some younger kid's face, smiling in that best grandma way she liked to project. It looked exactly like the scene Piper had been imagining. For everyone else. A sound came out of Piper that might have been a breath or a tiny sob. Then, very quietly, she asked, "Mom, what does a cheater's kid mean?" Everything in Hannah went very still. "What?" Her voice sounded wrong in her own ears. Too soft, too careful. Piper glanced at the window one more time, then down at her shoes. "Grandma said it," she whispered. "She said, 'This party is not for cheaters' kids.' And then she said I'm one. So I had to stay out here so the real family could have fun." The words were small, but they hit Hannah like someone dropping a drawer full of silverware. "She said that?" Hannah managed. Piper nodded once. Quick, guilty, like she was bracing for Hannah to be mad at her. Hannah swallowed whatever sound tried to claw its way out of her throat. "Come here," she said, because anything else might have cracked her open on the spot. Piper stepped into her arms like someone had cut her strings. Her body was stiff from holding itself together too long. Hannah wrapped her coat around Piper's shoulders, warming the little hands between her own. Piper's breath hitched against her collarbone. That was enough. More than enough. "Stay with me," Hannah murmured. Piper nodded again. Then Hannah turned toward the door. Not marching, not charging, just walking, very calmly, like she was delivering a casserole. like nothing inside her was on fire. She rang the bell. It took a few seconds. Hannah imagined Marjorie smoothing her sweater, adjusting her expression to the one she liked to use at church potlucks. The door opened. "Well, look who—" "Oh." Marjorie's smile dropped half an inch. "You're early." "I'm on time," Hannah said. Her voice was steady, which even surprised her. "Why was Piper outside?" Marjorie blinked at her with that airy, innocent confusion she saved for when she absolutely knew what she'd done. "Oh, she wanted to be out there," Marjorie said. "Fresh air. You know how kids are." "Fresh air," Hannah repeated. Marjorie nodded brightly. She could have come in whenever she wanted. Behind her, the party remnants were still buzzing. Kids talking, chairs scraping, someone licking frosting off a plate. A life Piper had literally watched through glass. "Piper," Hannah said, keeping her eyes on Marjorie. "Did you want to be outside?" She felt Piper shake her head against her shoulder. Marjorie's smile tightened. Well, she misunderstood then. She got herself all upset. Sensitive children invent problems. "She said you told her the party wasn't for cheaters' kids," Hannah said. "She said you told her she's not real family." Marjorie's expression flickered, just enough to show the truth before she shoved it back under something self-righteous. "I wasn't going to let her ruin Sadie's day," Marjorie snapped. "I wasn't going to have that child in the photos. Do you think it's fair to Sadie? Or to me?" Hannah's hands warmed Piper's shoulders. They were the only thing keeping her from shaking. "So you left a 7-year-old outside," Hannah said. "All afternoon." Marjorie folded her arms. "Actions have consequences, Hannah. Maybe if you hadn't made the choices you made, things would be easier for everyone." There it was, hung in the air like a rotten ornament. The thing Marjorie was always circling. The thing she had finally said in front of Hannah's kid. "Okay," Hannah said quietly. Marjorie frowned. "Okay?" "Thank you for being clear," Hannah said. "I needed to hear it from you." Marjorie's mouth opened, probably to tell Hannah she was being dramatic, or sensitive, or ungrateful, or something else she'd been rehearsing for years. But Hannah didn't stay. She turned, walked down the porch, held her daughter tighter. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She strapped Piper into her seat, tucked the blanket around her legs, and kissed the top of her head. "Mom," Piper whispered, "are you mad?" "Not at you," Hannah said. "Never at you." "Then who?" Hannah closed the car door gently. "I'll handle it," she said. Piper watched her through the window, eyes wide, trusting. Hannah got behind the wheel, started the car, and pulled away from the curb with a calmness that felt almost surgical. She did something they didn't expect, and 3 hours later, their lives started to collapse. If someone had told Hannah years ago that she would one day pull her daughter off a porch where she'd been exiled like a Victorian ghost child, Hannah would have laughed, maybe cried a little from stress, and then reminded them that she was not the kind of woman who ended up in that kind of family drama. But here she was. People always want to know when everything went wrong. The thing was, it didn't go wrong all at once. It went wrong the slow way, the quiet way, the way you don't notice until you're standing on a porch with a freezing 7-year-old asking what a cheater's kid is. So Hannah's story backed up, but only far enough to make sense of the explosion. She'd met Logan at work. He was her husband now, which still felt strange sometimes, considering the way it started. That's how the whole mess began. Fluorescent lights, burnt coffee, terrible break room chairs, and a man with tired eyes and a polite smile that looked like it was held together by habit and caffeine. They were friendly coworkers first, the kind where you accidentally shine a flashlight into each other's souls during lunch breaks without quite meaning to. Then one evening, over lukewarm Chinese takeout, he said it. "I should tell you something. I'm technically still in a relationship. In Hannah's head, alarms went off like a Vegas slot machine. In real life, she just nodded and took a sip of tea like she had emotional insurance. But Logan didn't flinch. "It's basically over," he said. "Has been for a long time." I told her. She didn't want to hear it. He said it the way people confess to crimes they never meant to commit, more tired than guilty. And Hannah believed him. Not because she was naive, but because everything in him matched the story. The way he talked about the woman, the way he talked about himself, the way he looked so defeated every time he mentioned going home. Still, starting something with him felt like walking a tightrope over a canyon full of judgmental family members. Spoiler, that was exactly what it turned out to be. What Hannah didn't know then, but learned later in pieces, like finding puzzle parts under a couch, was that his entire relationship with that woman wasn't built on romance. It was built on pressure. His mom loved her. His sister loved her. The neighborhood probably had embroidered throw pillows with her name on them. Logan, meanwhile, felt like a supporting character in his own life. "Everyone said I was lucky to have her," he told Hannah once, in the tone of a man reciting a eulogy for a relationship he never chose. "I didn't feel lucky. I felt drafted. Imagine dating someone because your entire extended family has already fallen in love with the idea of you two. Imagine trying to break up and being told, 'Are you sure? Are you sure you're not making a mistake? She's perfect. You'll regret this.' Imagine hearing that since you're old enough to vote. So yes, Hannah became the first decision Logan ever made for himself. His first act of rebellion. His first, 'I'm doing this because I want to, not because you told me to.' And his family reacted. Well, exactly how you'd expect a family used to choreographing their children's lives to react. For the first month, Hannah genuinely thought things might be okay. Marjorie greeted her politely. Tara even smiled at her. His parents asked normal questions. Nobody hissed, nobody threw holy water. It was fine. Then the cracks started. A joke here, a long silence there, a look that lingered half a second too long. Someone teasingly called Hannah a homewrecker in the kitchen during a holiday dinner. She laughed because that's what women did when someone insulted them in a tone too light to fight properly. They didn't stop. It wasn't dramatic, not yet. Not even obviously mean. Just sharp. Off. Like they were measuring her against a ghost and she kept coming up short. It was around then, when the jokes stopped being jokes, that Logan finally told her the part he'd been avoiding. They were sitting in bed, the house quiet, the kind of moment where truths slipped out because lies took too much air. "She wasn't just my girlfriend," he said. "She was my mom's best friend's daughter." It hit Hannah with an ugly click. Of course Marjorie wasn't mourning a breakup. She was mourning a legacy, a story she'd rehearsed for years. "And she still talks to them," Logan added, rubbing the back of his neck. "But it's strained. She blames me. And you. She thinks losing them ruined everything." He said it apologetically, like he was confessing weather he couldn't control. Which, honestly, he couldn't. He'd been raised to keep the peace, to make himself small so his mother's world stayed big. Standing up for Hannah, and later Piper, required a spine he hadn't grown yet. Then Piper was born. And visiting Marjorie's house became a masterclass in subtle humiliation. Tara's daughter, Sadie, was the golden grandchild. Always first, always praised, always front and center. And the ex's child, yes, the ex's, was treated like honorary royalty whenever his mother or grandmother came by. Marjorie lit up around him like he was proof she hadn't lost everything. Piper hovered, close enough to be present, far enough to be forgotten. At birthdays, Piper would be handed the last cupcake. At holidays, she sat at the edge of the couch while the special kids took the spotlight. At one gathering, Hannah watched Marjorie lift the ex's toddler onto her hip while brushing past Piper like the little girl was part of the furniture. And Hannah told herself, "It's subtle. It's survivable. She would never actually hurt her." She told herself that right up until the day Piper stood outside a locked door, waiting to be let back into a family that never planned to open it. And that was when everything truly broke. If you've never filed a police report on your mother-in-law, Hannah wouldn't recommend it, but she would also kind of recommend it. Urgent care was the first punch. The police station was the second. There was something about watching an officer write down her daughter's temperature and the phrase, "forced to remain outside during family gathering," that made the world tilt in this slow, surreal way. Like, oh, this isn't family drama. This is an incident. Piper sat beside her, swinging her legs, wrapped in a blanket someone at urgent care had given her. She was sipping a juice box, pink-cheeked and tired, like this was the world's strangest after-school activity. Hannah wasn't shaking anymore. She'd burned through shaking. The officer asked questions. She answered them calmly. Too calmly. The kind of calm that meant a woman had passed the event horizon of patience. When it was done, he said, "We'll follow up." Hannah nodded, thanked him, and didn't look back. By the time they pulled into the driveway, the sun was setting and her hands were ice on the steering wheel. Not from nerves, just from whatever happened to your body when your brain decided a whole new chapter of your life had begun. Logan came to the door the second she stepped inside. "Hey, how was—" He saw Piper. He saw the blanket. He saw Hannah's face. His voice crumpled in the middle of the sentence. "What happened?" Hannah handed him the paperwork. He read the first line, then the second. Then his jaw went rigid in a way she'd never seen before. "Exposure?" he whispered. "Emotional distress?" She left her outside? Hannah watched the realization hit him in stages. Shock, disbelief, horror, guilt, rage, each one landing like a heavy boot on soft ground. "She did that to her," he said quietly. "My mother did that to her." There was nothing left for Hannah to explain. Logan read the report again from the top, slower this time. Then he set it down with a kind of trembling precision, like if he wasn't careful he'd snap the table in half. "Okay," he said. "Okay." And in that "okay," Hannah heard it. The sound of a man stepping out of his old life and into a new one. A man finally choosing his wife and daughter over the shadow of a family he'd spent his entire life tiptoeing around. Without another word, he walked into the living room and grabbed his laptop. "What are you doing?" Hannah asked. "Ending it," he said. He opened their banking app. He clicked through screens with this terrifying calm. He stopped every recurring transfer, every monthly help, every emergency fund he'd kept filling for Marjorie. Years of guilt payments evaporated with a few taps. When he finished, he typed one short message on his phone. "Financial support is terminated." He hit send. "That's it," he said. "She doesn't get another cent from us." Hannah sat down slowly, because standing felt like trying to balance on a tightrope in a windstorm. Piper looked up from her blanket fortress on the couch. "Daddy, are you mad?" Logan knelt in front of her immediately. "Not at you," he said. "Never at you." "Grandma said I'm not real family," Piper murmured. His face broke in a way Hannah knew she'd remember for the rest of her life. "Sweetheart," he whispered, "you are my whole family." Hannah was about to join them when his phone rang. Unknown number. Of course it was. He hesitated, then hit speaker. Marjorie didn't even wait for a hello. "Logan! How dare you do this to me?" Her voice blasted through the kitchen like a smoke alarm made of accusation and entitlement. "You cut me off? After everything I've done for you? After everything we've survived? And now the police are calling my house asking questions about your daughter." Logan didn't answer. He just stared at the phone like it had personally betrayed him. "How could you?" Marjorie shrieked. "She's lying, Logan. Piper is lying. Your wife put her up to this. I know it." Hannah felt Piper tense beside her. She placed a hand on Piper's shoulder. She was cold because she went outside, Marjorie ranted. Kids get cold. That's not a crime. And now the police are at my door. So they had followed up. Not that Marjorie would ever admit what she'd told them. Mom, Logan said quietly, you left my daughter outside during a birthday party. She could come in any time, Marjorie snapped. She just wanted attention. And you ungrateful child, you dare cut off my money? Do you know how embarrassing this is? Do you know what people will think? Do you know? He pressed the red button. The silence that followed felt holy. Piper exhaled. Logan exhaled. Hannah exhaled. Then he turned the phone off completely. Hannah put a hand on his arm. Hey, she said softly. You okay? He sat beside her on the couch, leaning forward like he needed to feel the ground under him. I knew she played favorites, he said. I knew she didn't like you. I knew she still held on to the past. But I didn't know she... He stopped, swallowed, shook his head. I didn't know she could do that to a child. Hannah didn't say anything. She didn't need to. And I'm done, he whispered. With all of it. With pretending she's someone she isn't. With explaining away the things she does. With making excuses. With sacrificing you and Piper just to keep the peace. He took Hannah's hand. His grip was warm, steady, certain. We protect our daughter, he said. From now on, no matter what. She nodded. Then, together, they typed the final message. We are no longer in contact. Do not reach out again. They hit send. Then they blocked every number. And the moment the last block turned green, Hannah could swear the entire house felt quieter. Like someone had turned off a machine they'd all grown used to humming in the background. For the first time in years, it felt like the three of them were standing on the same side of the line. And on the other side? A storm gathering. One they had just refused to walk into ever again. Hannah had thought the phone call from Marjorie was the finale. Turns out it was just the overture. Marjorie's real performance started the next morning. Hannah woke up, checked her phone, and nearly dropped it on her face. Marjorie had posted a Facebook essay, one of those pastel backgrounds with whimsical font that screamed, "Gather round, I'm the victim now." It began with, "Some people destroy families and then use the police to punish grandparents," and it only got less reasonable from there. She wrote about parental alienation, cheaters weaponizing the system, and grandchildren being stolen. She mentioned Hannah by description. Well, not by name, but the kind of vague, self-pitying portrait that everyone knew was about her. Marjorie ended with, "I tried to teach morals, and this is the thanks I get." If delusion had a fragrance, this post would have reeked of it. Hannah was about to show Logan when notifications started popping like popcorn. Tara commented, "We all know what really happened." Some cousin Hannah barely knew wrote, "Praying for healing." One woman chimed in with, "Grandparents have no rights anymore." Hannah wanted to reply, "Rights revoked due to being a terrible human, try again." But she restrained herself. Growth. Logan came out of the bathroom with his hair sticking up and said, "Why is my phone vibrating like it's possessed?" Hannah handed him hers. He read the post once, exhaled through his nose, and said, "Okay, no, we're not doing this." He sat next to her on the bed, cracked his knuckles like he was about to defuse a bomb, and typed a response that was the emotional equivalent of a scalpel. For anyone confused, Piper, 7, was told by her grandmother, "This party is not for cheaters' kids." She was kept outside for the entire party. No coat, no food, no access to the bathroom. She watched through the window. We took her to urgent care. Medical notes show she had been outside for too long and was emotionally distressed. He attached a redacted photo of the discharge summary. That was it. No insults, no theatrics, just facts. Marjorie's post was a fire. Logan's comment was a fire extinguisher. And suddenly, people weren't sure which way to run. A neighbor commented first, I saw her outside when we left for groceries and again when we came back. I thought she was just waiting for someone. My heart is breaking." Another person from church said, "I had no idea, but this matches other things I've seen." And then a relative, one who'd always stayed neutral, posted, "She's called my kids cheaters' kids during fights. We stopped visiting because of it." Hannah didn't breathe for a solid 5 seconds. Then came parents from Marjorie's childcare circle. This was the part they hadn't accounted for, because Hannah and Logan had never treated Marjorie's little babysitting side business like a real thing. It wasn't an official daycare, just 2 or 3 families from church who dropped their kids off a few mornings a week. Pocket money. Something Marjorie did to feel needed. Feel needed and wield power look very similar in her hands. But now those parents were seeing exactly how she treated children she didn't approve of. Messages started sliding in, screenshots sent to Hannah privately. "I'm pulling my daughter out. I can't risk this. I thought it was strange she never let the kids play outside unless she watched them like hawks. Thank you for posting the truth." And then, "The church board is asking her to step back until things settle." So Marjorie had lost. Her imagined moral high ground, her reputation, her childcare income, her church standing. The meltdown was already spectacular. But the universe wasn't done. Around noon, Logan's phone lit up with a number he didn't recognize. He answered. "Put it on speaker." A calm voice said, "Logan, it's Kenneth." They both froze. Marjorie almost never talked about her brother. Hannah had assumed it was because he lived out of state and was busy being financially successful and emotionally stable. Both things Marjorie resented in others. "I just saw the mess online," Kenneth said. "I called your mother. She's hysterical. Blaming you. Blaming Hannah. Blaming gravity." That tracked. Then he said something that nearly knocked the air out of Hannah's lungs. "You know that house she lives in? The one where all this happened? It's mine." Hannah mouthed, "What?" at Logan. Kenneth continued. "She's been living there rent-free for years. I paid the taxes, the repairs, because I felt bad after her divorce. I thought she needed help. Turns out I enabled her nastiest streak." Hannah sat there stunned, because apparently this entire time Marjorie had been torturing her self-esteem inside a house that wasn't even hers. Kenneth wasn't finished. "I told her this morning she has 90 days to move out." Logan blinked. "You what?" "I'm reclaiming the property," Kenneth said. "She used my house to hurt a child. I won't be part of that." It was the most composed fury Hannah had ever heard from someone she'd never met. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. "I want that house to go to Piper." Hannah's brain short-circuited. "What?" she blurted out louder than intended. Kenneth chuckled. "You're there? Good. Yes. I want the house transferred to Logan, and eventually to Piper. She's the one who needs security, not Marjorie." He went on. "If a child was hurt on that porch, then the least I can do is make sure she's the one protected by it." Hannah covered her face with her hands because suddenly there were too many emotions fighting for space: vindication, shock, disbelief, something dangerously close to gratitude. "Kenneth," Logan said, voice shaking. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll take care of your family," Kenneth replied. "Say you won't let her near that girl again." Logan didn't hesitate. "I promise." "Good," Kenneth said. "Because she's already spiraling. You haven't seen the voicemails she left me. She's screaming about conspiracies and betrayals and how you were her only good son." Hannah snorted. "She has one son." "Exactly," Kenneth said. "Anyway, the paperwork will be ready next week." He hung up. Logan and Hannah stared at each other. He whispered, "She's going to explode." "Oh, she's mid-explosion." Hannah said. We're just out of blast range now. Notifications kept pinging. Marjorie had posted again. This time a blurry selfie of herself crying, captioned, I've been betrayed by my own family. People were now commenting things like, wait, did you really leave a 7-year-old outside? This doesn't sound like parental alienation. This sounds like consequences. Taking advantage of your brother's generosity is not being betrayed. Her martyrdom arc was evaporating in real time. Hannah leaned back on the couch, exhausted and strangely at peace for the first time in years. Piper wandered into the room wearing pajamas with stars on them, rubbing her eyes. Mom? Dad? Why are you staring at your phones like that? Logan opened his arms. Come here, sweetheart. She crawled onto his lap, warm and sleepy. Are you still mad at Grandma? She asked. Hannah smoothed her hair. We're not mad, she said. We're just done. 6 months later, the world looked nothing like it had on that porch. Marjorie had to move out, just like Kenneth said. She was in a tiny studio 2 towns over now, the kind with creaky radiators and windows that looked onto a parking lot. She'd lost most of her friends. Apparently, even the loyal ones scattered when the police called your house and Facebook called your bluff. Tara didn't get spared either. Word spread. It always did. And suddenly people knew she'd been part of everything. The whispers, the favoritism, the consequences. Sadie had to switch schools after the other moms stopped inviting playdates. Funny how accountability always felt like bullying to the people who caused the harm. And then, in the middle of all that, 2 unexpected calls. The ex and her mother. Both apologizing. Both horrified. Both saying, we never wanted this. We didn't know she'd gone this far. For once, Hannah believed them. Meanwhile, Piper was blooming. She laughed more, slept better, had a little group of friends who adored her. She went to birthday parties where she was wanted, not tolerated. She never brought up her grandmother. Kids know when a chapter is closed. And Hannah and Logan? They lived in the house now. Marjorie's old house. A place worth more than 300 grand. Gifted because Kenneth decided it should protect Piper instead of hurting her. When Hannah told the story online, she ended it the same way every time. So what do you think? Did they go too far? Or not far enough? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe for more.